Welcome back to the tutorial course on Android app development. In the previous lecture, we learned the basics of OpenWeatherMap API, its implementation, and fetching weather details using OWM API. In this lecture, we will learn to fetch the following weather details: current weather data for the next 24 hours, weather data for the next 5 days. We will discuss how to fetch current weather data as per the current location later. On the next slide, we will continue to learn about application development. In this lecture, we will learn about the following: weather activity, weather now, fetching current weather details. On the next slide, we will continue to learn about the weather screen. In the previous lecture, we had created the weather activity for loading the weather details. We will now create a toolbar object. We need to set the title for the toolbar as the selected location with the type of weather details. For example, if we are selecting London and load current weather details, then the title should display London Weather Now. We need to set this toolbar as the support action bar. Instead of a native action bar, we will use the support action bar for backward compatibility, which is for supporting the older versions of Android OS platforms. Since the action bar is introduced in one of the latest API levels, it will not support some of the older versions of the Android OS platforms. We now need to enable the display of the home button to show the back button in the support action bar. We can do this by enabling the support action bar method set display home up as enabled to true to show the back button. We need to add the back button click event on the native method on option item selected and then call the on back press native method on action bar back button. When we call the on back press native method, it will finish the current activity and go to the previous screen. On the next slide, we will learn how to load the weather details. We need to create 3 fragments for loading current weather data for today, and weather data for this week. We will create the following 3 fragments: weather now fragment, weather today fragment, weather this week fragment. We will add only the default factory methods and remove the unnecessary methods created by the IDE. we need to fetch the weather details with the selected city name. To do this, we need to pass the city name as the parameter to each weather fragment and store that value in a variable. We now have created three fragments and kept the location as a global variable for all the three fragments. We can now fetch the current weather details for the selected location. On the next slide, we will learn how to fetch the current weather details. First, we will need to create a Weather Now view object and assign the object in the onCreateView method. We now will create a weather URL string and populate the URL with the selected location name, which will fetch the weather data for the selected location. We will first add the isOnline method to check the network connectivity. Then, we will add the access network state permission in the manifest file for network permission. In the method, we will create a connectivity manager object and assign it with the connectivity system service. Then, we will get the active network information using the getActiveNetworkInfo method and return the network status. We will then check the network status. In case there is no network connection, we will show an alert to the user, stating that there is no network connection. Let's now add the showAlert function. Inside the showAlert function, we will create an alert dialog and set the title and message for the dialog. Then, we will call the show method to show the dialog. We will also add the required dialog constants to the strings file. We will then call the alert function in a situation when the network is unavailable. If the network is available, we will show a progress dialog to the user for proper user interaction before calling the actual weather fetching service. We have already created the WeatherNow task class for service call by extending the async task in the previous section. We will use the same code in this lecture.